A client recently contacted me about this document that it received in the U.S. mail, prominently listing my client's domain name at the top and attaching what my client thought was a bill for $228. It took me only a moment to identify this as a deceptive solicitation related to my client's domain name, so I said that the document could be, and in fact should be, safely ignored. Hi, it's Doug Isenberg, and the issue I'm talking about today doesn't involve a domain name dispute or even a specific legal issue, but I've seen it arise frequently and thought it would be worthwhile to make sure that all domain name registrants are aware of these types of mailings, which sometimes get paid unnecessarily when a company doesn't realize what it's all about. I'm not going to identify the entity that sent this particular mailing, in part because I think there are many similar entities doing the same thing. But the important lesson is to understand what's going on in this situation, so anyone or any company that owns a domain name can readily know what's a legitimate invoice for a domain name and what's not. First, to be clear, domain name registrations are generally available for payment of an annual fee, which can be as little as $10 or so per year for .com at popular retail registrars. And most domain name registrars offer multi-year registrations. All trademark owners, all domain name registrants for that matter, must pay this ongoing fee or risk having their domain name registration canceled. In some cases, it's possible to reclaim a lost domain name through the UDRP process, the Uniform Domain Name Dispute Resolution Policy, something I do for my clients, but it's far less expensive and far less disruptive to simply pay the renewal fees on time. Now, fortunately, many domain name registrants already know this. Unfortunately, however, some domain name registrants don't realize who their registrar is, what the actual renewal fees are, and what services and fees are unrelated to maintaining a domain name registration, and therefore unnecessary. In fact, I wrote about an issue several years ago when domain name expiration scams were popular. As I noted at the time, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission and ICANN had issued warnings about notices being sent to domain name registrants that appeared to be for domain name renewals, but in fact, they were sent not by registrars, but by unrelated companies trying to trick domain name registrants into paying unnecessary fees that they thought were required to maintain their domain names. Now, since then, some of these solicitations have evolved a bit, but they can still easily create confusion. For example, the notice that my client recently received does state in all caps, this is not a bill, this is a solicitation. You are under no obligation to pay the amount stated above unless you accept this offer. Still, it is pretty easy to overlook this text, which is much less prominent on the document than the domain name itself, which is in all bold at the top of the page. And the disclaimer appears on only one side of the paper, somewhat hidden in the middle, and not anywhere on the detachable payment stub. So, what does a domain name registrant get if it pays this fees? Well, according to the document, it gets an annual website domain listing on Internet Directory, not on Google or Yelp or any well-known service, but on a discrete search engine that I suspect most people have never heard of or use. In other words, domain name registrants are paying for a service that probably provides them with no benefit. Now, if that's the case, then you might be wondering, why in the world would anyone actually pay the fee? Well, a review of complaints about this service on the website of the Better Business Bureau provides some insights. And indeed, more than 200 complaints have been filed with the Better Business Bureau just for the one company that sent a solicitation in the mail to my client recently. Here's what some of the complaints say. We received a fraudulent bill in the mail from this company. We are not receiving any services from this company and would like a refund for the full amount of $228, which was paid via check. Have tried to make contact with the company on the phone and email with no response. I received a bill in the mail for $228 saying that I have to pay for my website's domain name. However, my website's domain name is paid through a friend under another service. My complaint is that this company is falsely saying that I owe this money. Rather than legitimately saying this is advertising for me to use their services, if I want to, they are sending it to me in the form of a bill that I must pay. This company sends out a solicitation that reads like a bill. They seem to be asking me to pay them so that I can keep my business domain name. This business is intentionally misleading and deceptive. They structure their letters to look like a bill from a legitimate business who hosts my domain name, but they do not and have not ever had hosting control over my domain name. Now, although the company that was the subject of these complaints appeared to offer refunds in many cases, it seems obvious that many companies are unwittingly paying for a service they don't want or need. So, what's the best way to avoid being deceived? Because companies like this obtain contact information for domain name registrants through publicly available WHOIS records, using a privacy or proxy service is sort of like getting an unlisted telephone number to eliminate unwanted solicitations. Plus, changes to WHOIS records already made in recent years as a result of the European Union's GDPR, or General Data Protection Regulation, have already probably helped slow the tide. But the other thing to do when receiving what appears to be a domain name invoice is simply to ask someone who knows, which is why my client contacted me about the notice it received. As a domain name attorney, I'm always on the alert for all sorts of deceptive activity. So I immediately knew what was going on here and told my client to disregard the notice. But as I said before, be careful, because you also want to be sure you don't do anything to jeopardize your domain name registration. If you want to learn more about online brand protection issues, please check out my masterclass on domain name disputes, as well as other resources on my GigaLaw website. And be sure to subscribe to the GigaLaw YouTube channel to be notified of future videos discussing other domain name legal topics. Thanks for watching, and see you next time online.